Help me hit 7,000 subscribers. Support the video with a like and share your thoughts in the comments. I read everyone. Thank you. I've always believed there are quiet ways people show you who they truly are. Sometimes it's in their tone. Sometimes it's in the choices they make. And sometimes, like on the night everything changed for me, it's in the words they scream so loudly that the whole world hears them. My name is Aiden, and for most of my life, I've been the kind of man who stays calm even when everything inside me is shaking. When I met Marlo, I thought she was the gentle chaos I needed in my structured life. She had this bright laugh, these spark-filled eyes, and a charm that made people lean in without realizing they were doing it. I fell fast. She fell slowly. And then somewhere along the line, she stopped falling completely. But you don't notice the moment someone stops loving you. It's never a thunderclap. It's the slow dimming of a lamp. A light you don't realize has gone out until you're sitting in the dark. The night it happened, we were at her best friend Alara's apartment for a small get-together. A few co-workers, some of Marlo's college friends, and her cousin Finn, who was already a couple drinks ahead of everyone else. The place smelled like citrus candles and cheap takeout. Music hummed low in the background, the kind of playlist meant to fade behind conversations. I was standing in the kitchen, stacking paper plates so Alara wouldn't have to deal with a mess later. I like helping quietly. It's something my mom taught me. Marlo, however, had always said it made me look too eager to please. I never understood why trying to ease someone's workload was a flaw, but I learned to pick my battles. That night, though, she didn't feel like letting anything slide. Finn clapped a hand on my shoulder and laughed. Man, Aiden, you're practically the ideal boyfriend. You clean, you cook, you're polite. My sister should be worshipping you. I chuckled awkwardly and shook my head. Compliments always felt oversized on me, like a jacket I hadn't grown into. But before I could say anything, Marlo's voice shot across the room like an arrow. Please don't encourage him, she said, loud enough to cut through every conversation around us. He's not some perfect man. He's fine. A few people exchanged glances. Someone laughed, thinking she was joking. I hoped she was too. I tried to meet her eyes, but she was already reaching for another drink. Alara stepped closer, her voice soft. Marlo, maybe tone it down a little? Marlo waved her away. I'm just being honest. Someone has to be. The room shifted. The air thickened. I could feel the edges of embarrassment creeping up my neck. I hated that feeling, the heat, the tightness in my chest, the instinct to shrink myself. But I stayed still. I didn't want to make the moment bigger. Later, someone suggested playing a group game. Marlo loved games, mostly because she loved winning them and hated when anyone else did. After a few rounds, I guessed an answer she had missed, and I swear it was like I had broken some unspoken law. She glared at me, her jaw tightening. And then, as if something snapped inside her, she stood up and shouted, "You'll never be good enough for me." The words rang out with brutal clarity. The entire room went silent. Even the music felt like it retreated into the walls. I felt every eye turn toward me, some sympathetic, some uncomfortable, some pretending not to care but clearly invested. Time slowed, and in that stretch of quiet, something inside me settled instead of shattered. Everyone expected me to crumble, to argue back, to storm out, to defend myself. But instead, I felt a strange steadiness wash over me, like I'd been holding onto a frayed rope for too long and finally realized I could just let go. So I smiled, not out of spite, not to provoke her, just a small, tired smile that came from understanding something I hadn't wanted to see until now. I looked at her and said, "Then thank you for finally saying it out loud." Marlo froze. The room froze with her. And in that stillness, I realized I wasn't the one who should feel embarrassed. This wasn't my humiliation. It was her revelation. Because the truth wasn't that I wasn't good enough for her. The truth was that I had been dimming myself, shrinking myself, just to fit the narrow space she gave me. And I was finally done doing that. Marlo didn't respond at first. She just stared at me like she didn't recognize the man standing in front of her. Maybe she didn't. Maybe she had gotten so used to the version of me that tiptoed around her moods, that apologized when he hadn't done anything wrong, that made himself small so she could feel bigger, that seeing me calm and steady felt like a stranger. The silence stretched long enough for people to start shifting awkwardly. Alara cleared her throat and whispered, just loud enough for the group to hear, "Marlo, maybe you should sit down." But Marlo wasn't ready to soften. Her pride was a bigger room than this apartment, and she needed everyone to fit inside it. She folded her arms and scoffed. "Oh, don't act like you're some martyr. You know exactly what you're doing." I met her gaze evenly. "I'm listening. That's all I've ever done." A few people murmured under their breath. Finn stared at his shoes, suddenly sobered. I could feel sympathy moving through the room like a quiet breeze, almost invisible but unmistakably there. And it wasn't blowing toward Marlo. She opened her mouth, closed it, then grabbed her drink again. She took a long sip, her eyes glistening with the kind of anger that isn't really anger. It's fear disguised as fury. Fear that the person you counted on to stay might actually walk away. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't defend myself with a list of everything I'd done right. I simply said, "If you've believed for this long that I'm not good enough for you, then why stay?" She blinked hard, caught off guard. Because I thought you'd get better. I thought you'd grow into someone more impressive." There it was. The truth. Small, sharp, and deeply telling. I nodded slowly. "And all this time, I thought you loved me for who I already was." That line changed something in the room. People inhaled at the same time like they all sensed the shift. Marlo looked away first, her jaw trembling with frustration. I felt strangely calm, like the storm had passed and I was standing in the quiet after. My heart didn't race. My hands didn't shake. I wasn't humiliated. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even sad. I was free. So I put the paper plates down, wiped my hands on a napkin, and said softly, "I'm going to head out." That made Marlo snap back. "So that's it? You're leaving?" "Yes," I said, steady as a steady could be. "Before either of us says anything we can't take back." Her eyes flashed with something wounded and wild. "You're seriously doing this in front of everyone?" I almost laughed, not out of mockery, but out of disbelief. "Marlo, you yelled at me in front of everyone. I'm just choosing not to break with you." That line wasn't planned. It just came out simple and honest. And honesty sometimes carries more weight than anger ever will. I walked toward the door. Nobody stopped me. Nobody tried to smooth the situation over. Even the people who liked Marlo didn't defend her. They just watched silently, maybe realizing that they'd witnessed the end of something they didn't understand completely. As I stepped into the hallway, the door didn't close right away. Marlo followed me out, her voice lower now, trembling. Not with rage, but with something closer to desperation. "Aiden, wait. You're overreacting." I turned to her gently. "I'm reacting exactly enough." Her breath hitched. I think that's when she realized the power had shifted. Not in a dramatic, explosive way, just quietly, the way sand shifts under your feet until you're standing somewhere new without noticing. "I didn't mean it," she said, whispering now. "I was just stressed. I was just—" "You meant it," I said. "And the worst part is, I think you've been meaning it for a long time." She looked down, her arms wrapped around herself like she was suddenly cold. "Can we talk later? Privately?" "We can," I said. "But nothing will be the same." Those words hurt her, but they were true. I wasn't saying them to punish her. I was saying them because I finally understood the thing I had been refusing to admit. Love shouldn't require you to earn your own worth. I left the apartment then, stepping into the quiet night. The air felt cooler, fresher. The streetlights hummed softly, and the world felt strangely wide again, like it hadn't in months. Walking to my car, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Lightness. I sat inside, shut the door, and let the silence settle. Not the heavy silence of neglect, but the clean silence of clarity. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like someone who wasn't enough. I felt like someone who had finally stopped settling for being, almost to someone who never bothered to see already. Later, Marlo would call, text, apologize, blame the alcohol, blame the stress, blame anything but the truth sitting quietly between us. But that night taught me something simple and enduring. People will show you whether they love you in the moments when they think you won't walk away. And I finally did.